Hello and good afternoon to today's webinar. Before we start, I'll cover just one slide concerning our main area of interest for today, and that's sub-optimization. Just give yourself a view on this image and you will find out that there is a lot of chaos going on. So here you can see a river and two landscapes which needed to be crossed, and that's the overall idea and strategy behind that. However, the manpower here is dealing in a very different way. So one team is building a tunnel and the other one is building a bridge. So that's highly ineffective. So that's why they're completely irritated here. And I bet that you will experience this quite often in your company as well. So today we want to give you some tips on how to not let this happen here with some very tactical tips, also based on the Microsoft tools.
Hello and warm servus from Austria. These are our 5 steps to Microsoft Teams excellence. In the last webinar, we covered the first 3 steps in detail. Today, we want to make it the other way around. I would like to give you a wrap up of the first 3 steps and then hand over to Nico, and he tells you about the digital team management and agile organization. The first webinar's title was installing Microsoft Teams is just not enough. And we say that because adding a tool to a company is just adding more complexity and not really bringing processes to be more efficient or to be more easy. Of course, the first step of every technology is technology and setup. So our first step covers all those things. We say, okay, we need to have focus on Azure, Microsoft infrastructure, data center services, and security. So the new tool needs to be secure, data loss prevention, all these things are in there. The second step is then, how do I bring my identities to this tool so I have seamless working for my employees, single sign-on as an example. And the third step is then configure the tools and really bring the tools to the company. But as I said before, this is just not enough, because when you installed Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, or other tools in Office 365, you just have another tool and you added complexity. And the next logical thing that you have to do is bring usage and know-how to your employees. So make them able to use the tool right. And the first thing that we suggest is obviously trainings, as in every other Microsoft tool or every IT tool. But as Microsoft Teams is a tool that involves and develops automatically, and Microsoft adds new features, that's just not enough. There is continuous improvement. And so you have to look, okay, what are my target audiences and what are my use cases? And based on these target audiences, it's possible to define key users or champions, as we call it. So people that are really interested to bring the processes forward to make them more efficient and use this tool in the processes. And when you have found these people, you can collect feedback from them, improve how the tools support your processes, and you can evaluate the usage. Are the people using it right? And are they doing the right things with this tool to really improve performance, as I said before? And when you do all those things and you have finished step 2, you are on the road to become a winner of the digitalization. And the third step is, now that you have installed all the things, you have done your homework regarding security and other things, you have trained the people to use the tool right. And now in the third step, you have to integrate it in your organization, because as I said before, a tool is just a tool until it helps you in the organization. And we have a circle here, and we see that we call it managed workplace in the center. So these tools in Office 365, especially to teams, needs to be managed in order to bring performance in the company and to bring your processes forward. And so we say, okay, the first step before going into all the techniques is to think about your cloud strategy, the management of change. How do you want to cope with the cloud? How do you want to bring your people in using cloud technologies? Define policies and basics. Define a governance. How are the rules? But you have also think on the people that just want to work, that are really interested in having gadgets and innovations, and you have to bring up quick wins. And when you have thought about all those things, you can go in the technical points and projects and just roll out all the tools and the stuff that you have planned in the first step. And then it's extremely important to have the champions and the key users that bring the information back to you. So you have to evaluate the results, integrate these champion teams, and then you can derive new requirements. As I said before, Microsoft Teams is continually changing. There will be new requirements from your employees, and then you have to go back, or go back is wrong, move forward again to step one and say, okay, these new requirements, the things that have changed in Microsoft Teams, are they fitting to my cloud strategy? Are they fitting to my policies and basics? Are they fitting to my governance? Maybe you have to adjust some things to fit the new requirements and the new needs. You go to step two, you bring these changes back to the tool, and then you have to review it again and look, okay, what do I have to change in order to bring my processes forward? These are the first three steps. As I said, when you want to see them in detail, we will send you the link to the first webinar.
Yeah,
Nico.
thank you, Bernhard. Thanks a lot for covering the first part. It was a very nailed presentation, covering everything together and summarize it for our customers. Before I'm going to continue with the steps 4 and 5, I would like to raise you a question which our customers usually raise, and that's how much time would you reckon does it need to implement all of the first 3 steps?
You cannot answer this question generally, of course, but it's a matter of months and not a few months and not a lot of months or years. Maybe, of course, you have to keep going. You have to bring out the first features, get the people into the process that are interested in gadgets and innovation, as I said before. And if, of course, it has to do with maturity of the organization. How do they work with change management? Are processes established that help people in the change? And the first step is very technical. This is a thing you can do very fast. The second and the third go into the organization and bring the tool alive. So these are, of course, very important, but they will not be a very long success until you do the next 2 steps and really focus on the organization and bring the tool and the processes together. And that's something, Nico, that you can tell us now. What are the steps 4 and 5?
Yeah, thanks, Bernhard. Thanks. Sounds pretty reasonable. So it seems to me like this is a holistic view for sustainable implementation. Yeah, thanks. To you guys, if you have further questions, just type it in the chat if you would like to gather more information on the first 3 steps and on Microsoft Teams in general. Please give it a shout, and also if you would like to have an expert call with Bernhard. All right. The steps 4 and 5, we've bundled them together because the end result of this should be that you are able to build an organization which is not only digital, but also agile and resilient. So what do we mean by that? Digital is particularly that what Bernhard already covered, so that you are having those tools in place that you are able to collaboratively work together no matter of location where you are. Agile means that you are pretty fast in decision making and that you are quickly able to adapt no matter on what kind of rejection the market is giving to you. And resilient means is that you are robust for any sort of next crisis. So this is our idea of a modern organization, and you are doing a great job if you're following all of these 5 steps in an evolutionary way. All right, so what is the content behind 4 and 5? For that, I'm having 2 questions for you. The first one is pretty easy, and I would like to know, have you communicated your corporate strategy to all of your teams? I'm aware that usually your management team is coming together in the beginning of the year or even in the end of the year for the next year and is conducting a corporate strategy. And now have you also communicated this to everyone so that's going to be executed? Just type it in the chat here, a yes or no, or mostly or not. The second question is rather important. And what would you say? How effectively is the strategy implemented across all the teams after it was communicated? So is there a difference? What would you say? Is it like 10 out of 10? This would mean that, yeah, perfectly implemented, rather better than we have expected. If so, just give it a shout. I would like to know what your strategy was, and perhaps we could build a service package together. If not, if it's rather 5 out of 6 or so, then you would say, yeah, mostly yes, but there are also many teams where I believe it didn't really work well, or like in total, not to the full. So where are you there? 3, not so good. 5, 6, a bit, yes. 7, well, but not the potential reached. Just type it in the chat. I've figured out some figures for that, which I would like to present to you. And there is a fact which says out of a study that only 16% out of your employees actually understand the context of your corporate strategy. And the funny thing is that in the same study, they were saying that 90% of them have communicated their corporate strategy. So similar as in the chat here is where you were mostly saying, yes, of course, we did communicate the strategy. But nevertheless, only 60% of the study saying that they are actually understanding the strategy. So despite having the communication, doesn't equal operational excellence in implementing the strategy. So please give it a read. It's from the Harvard Business Review, Why Strategy Execution Unravels. It's a study from more than 8,000 managers across 250 corporates. So you might be wondering, what is the reason? And we dig deeper into this topic and didn't conduct a whole study on this, but we were speaking with our customers. And there was like a pattern in this. And there are 4 main reasons why effective implementation of strategy fails. And the first one is essentially the first 3 steps here. Even if you do have a strategy on your mind or in an Excel sheet or whatever, then there is a lack of cooperation tools available on which you could then work together in order to achieve the strategy. So you would need such tools as Planner or Microsoft Team in order to distribute the documents and working on the goals and chatting together and calling, and also working in an agile fashion. So you would need this as a basis. Then it might be possible that your management team has deducted a strategy, but it's still very unclear what this means for you in your teams. So usually the strategy, which was formalized on the management level, is on a very high level, and it's not so clear what it really means and an impact on your teams, so that they have a clarity on what is expected from them to do on that daily basis. Plus, even if there is some sort of strategy and goal clarity, there is a lack of transparency in task management. So of course, your tasks are dependent on the goals, but often there is a lack of connection. So this is also one of the main reasons why in some companies, home office is not so seen that well, because there is a lack of trust, because there is a lack of transparency. Nobody's doing what the other one is doing because they are not able to see them in the office. But they're also lacking like a task management tool on which they could then observe and monitor what's going on. So this is the third reason. And the fourth one is quite surprisingly, because we didn't expect this, but it's actually pretty clear, is even if you do implement new tools, new behaviors, and how to deal with the tools, what we're going to show you later here, then if there is no sustainable coaching or consultation on this, on the whole implementation process, then there will be a cut barrier, and that's it, and you go back to normal, and everything failed. So what you need is a positive failure culture, which you are able to learn while using the new tools in a new fashion, how you do meetings together and how you communicate together and do some task management, and then allow yourself to reflect on this and learn. Learn what your best practices are, learn what wasn't that necessary for you as a team and get rid of it, but also learn where you can improve things, and then go on and do so these reflections continuously. And I will guarantee you, then you will have a bunch out of your main strategies on how to efficiently work together. But yes, you would like to see more details, right, on how to do this in a practical way. Of course, we will get to this. But what's our North Star? Where do we want to be? And this is like a graph here I would like to present to you, which is separated in two lines. The first one is dealing about alignment. So this is where the both pictures on the top are. So alignment means that everybody knows what the goal is and also knows how to effectively work together to achieve this goal. And autonomy means, of course, I do have the degree of freedom to bring in my own idea, to offer my help, and also that my help is appreciated. So naturally, you're looking at this green circle here, which means aligned autonomy. So here, if you remember the first picture of the webinar, where the river was presented, the strategy, what needs to be done is quite clear here. And this is, we need to cross this river. But figure out how means you do have the degree of freedom in order to bring in your own ideas. So by that, you will build an innovative organization because you're profiting from everybody's creativity and solution-oriented ideas. Moreover, they are more eager to collaboratively working together because they are aligned, they all know where they should go together, and also it is appreciated that they bring in their knowledge, their help, their ideas, their effort. And of course, there are also some negative sides, but when you're lacking either alignment or autonomy, for example, on the top left side, it's more a military fashion where both is pretty much declared. So also the goal, but also the way on how to build it. So we need to cross the river is what the leader is saying. It's also giving the direction. So it's very conformative culture here. So you're not allowed to bring in own ideas, but you're highly aligned because everybody knows what the course of direction is, right? This is quite useful when you're in a crisis situation, because then it's not so useful if you take a break and brainstorm and reflect and be very creative here. No, you have to be very fast and very directive. However, if you want to be an innovation company and want to look forward, then we do recommend this aligned autonomy picture here. And also, if you spend too much effort on the degree of freedom here, it's the bottom right picture, and there is no such sort of guidance here where the leader is just hoping that everybody's working on the right goals, then you are creating a very entrepreneurial organization, but rather in the negative fashion here, because you're having many people who have great ideas and would like to build something, but nobody's aligned at all. Right. So the picture on the right top here is where we're aiming for. And there's one solution out of many, but the one we're really standing behind this, and this is called OKRs. If you were present in the first webinar, then you will remember that I was starting to talk about this issue, and now I'm going to go deeper into it. Of course, we will send you the recordings of the first webinar and also the additional information if you would like to. So what are OKRs? OKRs is an essential and multidimensional target system to operationalize your strategy. And it's divided into two parts. The one is the so-called objectives. It's a state which needs to be achieved. So this is what you want to get. And the key results, I'd like to say, are the tactical, measurable next steps on how to reach the state. It's the way how you're going to get there. And how do they look like? Of course, you want to see some examples. Here's one example from the management level. It's actually a real example from the past year, where we have formalized an objective in the operations, and that was dealing around service packages. So I'm going to read that out loud for you. We're starting to renew our business model by introducing first service packages as part of our consulting approach. You may have already realized that we're offering such a service package to make it pretty clear and transparent what our offer is, what the goal behind this is, and what you need to pay for this. So very transparent for you. And that was the state where we wanted to be. And then we were asking, okay, what do we need to do for this? What would be our tactical next steps? And firstly, of course, we needed to have a template in order to introduce the service packages. Then we needed to define 10 service packages. That was our ambitious goal here. And the third key result was dealing around 2 units in our company, which needed to contribute to at least one service package. And finally, of course, we want to have them offered at least 5 units for customers. So that was on a very high level, the management level. We wanted to have the service packages as part of our consulting approach. And now, once again, this could be like a formalized strategy and maybe a little bit more clear because it contains the way and also contains some figures here and also to monitor the progress. Yeah, it's much, much clearer as you would formalize a normal strategy on the management level, but still, what does it mean for your team in the operations? So how do you really break it down until the very end? And this is here OKR set on the team level, which is really deducted from the management level. And it's dealing with the same issue here because it would like to pay into this management level objective. And this is saying our customers see added value in our service package. This is where actually was the team with my colleagues and me here. That was our objective. And we had then several key results. For example, DTM is a short version of the digital team management, which is our service, the product what I'm going to show you in the tutorial here in a couple of minutes, and CM for change management. So we started with those 2 products that they can be offered as service packages. So we needed to build them as service packages. After that, of course, it was some sales activity involved internally for our units. So we said that at least one unit offers change management as a standard service complementary to ERP implementation or CRM implementation. And then we also want to learn from our service offerings from our customers. So we want to ask at least 10 customers for feedback and incorporate the feedback as well. And finally, our aim was that 10 potential customers are interested in further information on DTM. And now if you would ask yourself, okay, if you would achieve all of the 4 key results, then this is the best chance that you would say, okay, this objective is achieved. So this is always the mental question you would have in your mind when you want to formalize those questions. And also be aware that the objective never contains any figures because it's a state. And the key results too, because you would like to make them measurable. And you also would like to make them ambitious so that you always know where to be and make them very motivational. All right, so this is how they look in theory. And still, there's the question, how is everyone aligned? You might have a grasp already between management level, team level. Yes, they are connected, they are all working together. But one slide to show like the bigger picture here. So on top, of course, there's the vision of the company. It's where you want to be in 3 to 7 years. This is the new organization you want to be there, adapted from all the market trends and reactions. And this is what you should do on a regular basis for the next 3 or 4 years. Again and again, this is your North Star where you want to be. Everything is related to achieve this vision. Then, of course, what you usually do or are already doing is you set yourself some strategic goals year by year. In OKR, we also call it molds, like midterm goals. I know it's a funny word. You could either state it as you're formalizing your strategic goals right now, or we would just offer you some framework on how to formalize it in a mold fashion. But nevertheless, the third part here, the management OKRs, is where it really comes into play. It's where you're now asking yourself, okay, you do have the strategy in mind, but on a very high level. But what does it mean actually? You break it down into different parts. So I was presenting to you one part, who was dealing about service packages of operations. Then of course you would have some for sales, you have one for marketing, for IT, for internal processes, and so on. And you would ask yourself this, okay, in order to achieve this 1 year goal, quarter by quarter, you're adapting yourself and you're setting a focus for the next quarter. And then you're having those OKR sets from the management level I was showing you. And then, of course, you distribute this and communicate it to the units. So, for example, people in organization or sales and so on. And they have a collectively OKR sets, which pays into this management OKRs. And of course, sales is pretty big. It contains also different teams, and then different teams have another OKR set, which builds into this. So it's like we call it cascading. It's like a hierarchy where everybody is lined towards the management OKRs and strategic goals. So really break down your strategy, make it clear on every level so that every team knows where the goal of direction is. So hopefully now you're having a clearer view on the architecture behind OKRs. And now I would like to show you that this is not a new thing, OKRs. It's actually very, very present since at least 10 years here in Europe. So the biggest players are, for example, BMW or Siemens, which use it, but also like former startups such as Zalando or N26, which are now unicorns, use the systems to grow that dramatically. And usually it came from Silicon Valley, where it was introduced first by Intel, but then adopted from Google, and Google really made this pretty big. And now also Adobe, LinkedIn, all the big companies are using OKRs. So you could be in a very prominent fashion here. All right, some figures before I'm going to show you how it works in reality with Microsoft tools. And there's one study I found really interesting, was a Sears study, where only for the purpose of the study, the company divided their employees in 3 different categories. The ones who were lower performer, the ones who were like average performer, and those who were high performers. And then they also distributed the employees in different groups who were doing OKRs not at all, OKRs a little, and OKRs like the full program here, as I was showing you. And it turned out that those who were using OKRs in order to manage themselves for their goal management, task management, they were 11.5 times more likely to be in the high performance category group. So that's really big here, very dramatic difference in comparison to the others. And the second study was around like a really case study from Adobe, which was really interesting. And they, before this study, they already divided their employees in different categories from lower performers, so the lowest 5 to 10% regarding some performance KPIs, then their average performing employees and the high performing employees. And then, yes, the top one were promoted and the lower one, they got out of the company. It was a really tough and very old-fashioned way on how to do performance management. And then they introduced OKRs in 2013, I believe it was. And 1.5 years later, they recognized an increase in company valuation of 68%. So it had a dramatic effect. And why is that so? So there are like 3 top reasons. I was already covering a little bit. And the first one is focus. You do focus on your strategy and the tactical steps, so the key results for a specific part in your year for 1 quarter. And then also you try to blend out the rest and really focus on this. So this is like almost a guarantee on productivity and on clarity on what to achieve. Second is alignment. I was already telling about this one. You are aligned from the top to the bottom so that everybody is paying into the higher strategic goals and you're highly aligned. Also, what you do during OKR sessions is that you also align yourselves horizontally, so across different departments, so that there is no silo thinking anymore, because you are actually working on the same goals together, and oftentimes you're highly dependent on each other. For example, sales and services, right? If they would have like completely independent goals, there's a high liability that they would having like comparing goals, competing goals, sorry. And with OKRs, it wouldn't be that way. And thirdly, engagement means that how emotionally you are committed to your company. And this is also a way where you were saying if you are doing OKRs and at least 40 to 60%, they are listening to your assumptions, to your ideas, and it raises your engagement, and you are more productive and you are also more eager to stay in the company. All right, but how would it look like in practice with Microsoft tools? And also we were talking about the OKR sets, like a formalization of the strategy itself gives maybe more clarity on how to do it, but still, what about the tasks? What about organizing yourself week by week? And this is what I would like to show you now in a tutorial based on Microsoft Planning. And this is the digital team management which we use. So I'm going to end the presentation here and switch over to Planner. So here you should see now a Planner board. You could either open it from the web app as I'm doing it right now, or you could easily do it in a very convenient way from the Microsoft Teams app directly. So then you wouldn't need two apps anymore. So that's like really great, really convenient. But for presenting purpose, I would like to show it here from the web app. And what you're seeing is like a lot of colors and a lot of tasks here, so cards also to say. But let's begin first with the buckets, how Microsoft calls them. I regularly call them just lists. So we are having different lists here, and they have, of course, different purposes because they are showing you tasks. So this is a task here. Every card here is a task, despite those key results and the goal here. And so those tasks here, they are having a different status. And this is what's pretty great because on the first glance, you can see that here's tasks which are still on the backlog. So they haven't been started yet. They're still planned. This is also what you can immediately see here from 0 out of 3 subtasks haven't been done yet. Or here, there isn't even a checklist because it's just a small task. Then you would see, okay, this is a bucket here where they are working on it. And this is what they're currently doing. And you could see, okay, yes, of course, there is progress already. So this is why they are not here in this list, but in this one. And then awaiting responses is a list where you were saying, okay, you have done everything what you are able to do, but you're still dependent on somebody's feedback from another stakeholder. So this is why it would make sense to have this card here, because then I would ask myself, okay, should we still do something here? No, you don't. You're just dependent on somebody's feedback. So this is why you're still awaiting response. And the great stuff here is that everything here is colored green. So they have a green label because they are dealing around this objective here. So usually when you have your goals, your OKRs or anything, your strategy, then you maybe write it in a PowerPoint presentation or an Excel, and you leave it there in a document. So you're not even bringing it out week by week and ask yourself, okay, what do I need to do to achieve those goals? And this is where the first sort of innovation comes into place here, where we say, make your objectives visible week by week. And this is why we're having the objectives on the left-hand side here for a certain period in the year. And this was actually a real objective, which was dealing around this product here, digital team management, so that we have created added value for our customers. And then you see that 1 out of 4, and here are the key results which are contained, are already done. And yes, then you're asking yourself, this is what you're doing in the beginning of the quarter, and then in the beginning of every week, you're asking yourself, okay, which key results do we want to address next? And this is, of course, key result 2 here. And we already have accomplished 7 out of 12 tasks. And you can see that, okay, that's the goal here. That's the key result, 3 different channels to promote the product. And you can see on the first glance that, okay, a lot of tasks have been already done, and those 5 here are the next ones. So this needs to be addressed, all right? So we're creating this cards here in the beginning of the week and the planning, and place them all here in the backlog. And then you're shifting just one card by another, depending on if you're still working on them, or if you're waiting response, or, okay, this was already done here. So this is why you could then click here on done and switch over here. And if you would do this 2 or 3 times, then Microsoft would even know this and cross it automatically. And then, of course, the goal is to get everything from left to right. So in this Kanban flow, which is also called, so that you can finally click here on done. If you would click here on done and switch it over there. So if you would then switch it here, as you can see already, it's crossed, so that you can then finally click here, and so that you're really tracking your progress in order to achieve those objectives which you have set yourself, as this is the main idea. Operationalize your strategy and make sure that you as a team member, or particularly you as a leader, make progress here and monitor it, and then also coach your team on do so. So I hope you really like this. Naturally, you don't need to have every steps here involved. If you get rid of out of one or two to list, this is totally fine, as long as you're following the overall principles, that you are setting your objectives and key results here on the left-hand side, so that you're having them present, and then you are deducting some tasks around them week by week, and then you're managing these accordingly. All right, if you have further questions on this, of course, don't hesitate to write it into the chat. We have some additional information which we could send to you, and also, of course, I can dedicate some time to speak with you personally.
Thank you, Nico, for the insight in how we brought digital team management alive and OKR with Planner. Don't want to interrupt, to just say thank you.
Thanks, Bernard. No worries. I also have only 2 more slides here to show you a potential roadmap. So pretty quickly. So if you are interested in implementing the OKRs here in your company, then we would advise into it in 2 different ways. The first one is either pilot project top down, so we could revisit your vision again, or just use your current vision statement and also your strategic goals. But the main part will be here in the management OKRs, so that we would formalize your management OKRs, so 3 to 5 sets approximately. And this is where we could start, because then you would have more clarity for your whole organization. And then the next cycle, we could then break it down in an evolutionary fashion from top to the bottom. So this is what we would advise, or completely vice versa, that you would start from the bottom, just with a pilot project in one team, where you would run the whole OKR cycle, and then maybe in 2 or 3 different units, and then again learn and reflect, and then grow it systematically. So these are the 2 roadmaps on how to implement OKRs in your company. So you're ready to go. Dig yourself into the information we presented you, or just give it a shout, and we can call and advise on how to implement OKRs. We would be very happy in doing so. Cool. So then we're coming to the end. Yes, there are some offers here, but we're not going to do a big sales presentation here. Just give it a look. We're having a very nice and precise workshop formats here, depending on where you stand. This is also for the first 3 steps for Bernard's team, Modern Workplace, and similar to the digital team management. So just give it a look here. You can scan it, but you will also receive it by mail. Then just give it a read. Maybe that's interesting for you. Yeah, we would be happy to help you out. And this is just one information for you. We also have a white paper on the whole issue on new normal and digital team management, which we would be happy to send you. Then you have something really at hand and to read. Yeah, so that's it already for the whole webinar, and also for the webinar series. And yeah, please connect with us, scan this, and we would be happy to chat with you, and would like to figure out where you're standing in your digital transformation.
Exactly. Thank you, and goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.